FieldWatch leads the world in online brand protection and compliance monitoring. It scrubs the entire internet looking for any content that could harm your company in order to bring it to your attention for immediate action and remediation. With our powerful platform, your team can immediately address any violations in order to get ahead of regulators and avoid brand risks. To learn more about FieldWatch, log on to momofactor.com and schedule a demo with our team today. Hi everyone, and welcome to MomoTalks, your exclusive podcast for expert insights from key players in the direct selling industry. I'm your host, Anabelle Gilliam.
Hey everyone, I'm Anabelle, and I'm the host of MomoTalks. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. Today we have special guest Jenna Lang, head of sales at Bella Grace Global. Jenna, welcome.
Thank you. And I actually got married, so Jenna Lang Warford.
Jenna Lang Warford. Okay, I love when they hyphenate. Great.
You know, you do what you can to survive. That's all I have to say.
Amen. Amen. Can you just start by, let's jump right in. Can you just start by walking us through a day in your life and your role at Bella Grace?
I would love to. So for the past 9 months, we have been working on launching a digital learning platform. So prior to that, I was focusing on recognition and sales, but I did have some experience in content libraries and training and that type of thing. So for the past 9 months, basically what I've been doing is creating and executing content strategy, and it has been amazing fun. So the learning platform is focused on a couple of different things. First of all, every independent business out there needs social media training. I mean,
100%.
You have to have somebody that understands how to get new people to your business. But Anabelle, you will not remember this, but when you were a sparkle in your daddy's eye, there were yellow pages, and that's how people found businesses.
I do remember them. Yeah.
No more yellow pages, right? There's not any more yellow pages. There's no more newspaper ads. Like, people aren't buying newspaper ads for the local newspaper. So the way you get your message out there is social media. And there's not a reliable way to get a broad-based view on here's how you approach social media. So that's what this platform does. Essentially, it is, the majority of it right now is social media training. So you don't have to figure out all the videos that are on TikTok. Oh, but does this person actually have engaged followers, or do they just buy 1 million followers? That would be really expensive, but people buy followers all the time, right? And it doesn't mean they're engaging. So I've been focusing on that, and I've been doing things like interviewing educators and reviewing content proposals and signing contracts and reviewing invoices when you're a startup company, because Bella Grace is 2 years old. When you're a startup company, we're 3. When you're a startup company, toddler. You wear a lot of hats. So
yeah.
So the person who reviews the invoices is the person who is signing the educators. So I'm having a blast, though. And it's something that I know so many people need. And as we go on, we're going to be adding some personal development content, which is kind of a super special project to me. I worked with Success Partners for so long in that realm and absolutely love personal development. I think it's key, of course, to our industry. Sure. So that is basically what my last 9 months has been like, and I've been loving every minute of it.
I love that. Wow. 2 years or 3 years of Bella Grace.
3 years.
Well, you mentioned wearing a lot of hats, which you definitely do, even in this, after 3 years, and as a growth strategist, sales and affiliate development and training, right? Content strategist, and you were also the main ghostwriter on Direct Selling for Dummies, which sounds super cool. And you have almost 20 years. Yeah, you have almost 20 years of experience all combined. So I think if you had to pick one strategy for growth that sticks out to you during your time in that role, what would it be?
You know, if you're talking about corporate growth, the thing I would say is know what consumers want. And when I say consumer, I mean potential distributors and potential customers. I don't just mean potential customers, because really our distributors begin as our consumers. And so what do they want? Right now, what consumers want is they want real relationships. They want authenticity. They want connection, but they will not compromise on things like e-commerce. In this
Say more.
channel, in this channel, we have said for a long time, hey, don't expect your family, your close friends to be your biggest supporter if you're a distributor. So the people coming to the distributor's website to purchase products are not friends and family are going to go, oh, they're just working through a few bugs. They're people they've met on social media, and they want an experience that's similar to what they're going to get outside the channel. So pay attention to what companies inside and outside the channel are doing. Know that meeting consumer expectation is exactly what you have to do to win as a corporate.
Absolutely. It's all about meeting them where they're at. So, whether you're working with the field or with consumers or that gray area in between, relationship building is a major factor in field facing and sales roles. And I wanted to know if you could share for the listeners, what are some powerful ways to connect with the field and really nurture that long-term working relationship?
You are right. That is incredibly key, and you're not going to succeed. No company is going to succeed without those relationships. Authenticity is the key. Respect, mutual respect. In working with a number of companies, occasionally you will hear someone frustrated say something like, the people who got us here are not the people who are going to take us there, meaning to the top, right? Or to greater levels of success. And the second we hear ourselves saying that or even thinking that, we need to pause, because the field responds to corporate. And it is the founders, the CEOs, the sales field, corporate, who are going to take the field to the top. So, yes, the people who got you here can be the people who take you there. If you will invest in the relationship, if you'll invest in the personal development, if you'll make sure they have the tools that they need to continue to grow. And if you, as a corporate team, continue to reach out and continue to grow and continue to nurture your connections, that is absolutely key. And I think as a part two to that, there has to be time together. There absolutely has to be time together, face-to-face time, whether that's Zoom or in person. If you want to fly a group in, if you want to meet a group somewhere, make it a safe space, have the conversations. Now, should the conversations completely shift your strategies? Probably not, but you are getting a new perspective. You are getting the things that you need to know about what they feel like they need. And as long as they believe that you're working to meet those needs and they see that you're empowering them in every way possible, they can take you to the top. Now, you're still going to have to grow. You're still going to have to bring people. You're still going to have to bring people along. But that nurturing of a relationship and understanding that they're going to respond to what corporate as a team is doing is absolutely key.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, everyone working together to sort of establish a community within the field, and also a community within the company as a whole, is super important. Okay, I totally see what you're getting at. That's really interesting.
Well,
So
let me add something to that. So I
yeah.
worked for a long time under one of what I consider the most wise men in direct selling, Paul Adams. And he would talk about the fact that you cannot create a culture in the field without it being the culture at corporate. It is always going to replicate. So if you've got a safe space at corporate and everyone is entrepreneurial minded and everybody is working toward a main goal, and you keep it a healthy space, that's going to be replicated in the field. And you cannot just bring in a top dollar speaker a couple of times a year and expect the field to have a different culture than you have in your corporate office.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, well, the field wants to know that the project that they're a part of, the big picture that they're a part of, is something that aligns with their goals and values. As someone, they want to know that the people that are running the company that they are working at is and working with, you know, they want to know that those people like would be like, you know, would be mentors to them or have important things to say and can fire them up. And yeah, I totally get that. Awesome. So back to our initial get to know you meeting, you mentioned that over the years you'd gain some insight on what founders of new direct selling projects may be doing that could be hindering their success. Can you expand on that for the listeners?
I remember sitting in a room where there were some great minds in that room. Paul Adams was in that room. I think maybe John Fleming, Jim McCabe, Deb Hayes might have been in the room. And we were talking about what are the core principles of success for a direct selling company that's growing. What can we identify as those core principles? And the one principle that stood out to me the most was every successful direct selling company has on its executive team someone who is a former field member who was hugely successful, who understands the challenges, who have lived the challenges and succeeded and managed all the dynamics of a volunteer army, as we like to say. And when you have those people as founders, they're almost always the most passionate, and they're usually incredibly fun. They're usually very dynamic. They're great to be around. But I would say that those people bring, in my opinion, a trait to the table that no one else can bring, and that is understanding the field mindset because they've lived it so deeply. And when they become founders, I think they have the strongest chance for success, but they have to remember they were wise enough to invest in their corporate team, people with experience, people with talent. They were wise enough to do that. Then they have to be brave enough to trust their judgment that I chose this person, we're going to execute what they're advising. Mm-hmm. It is a completely different world. Succeeding with a team of 20,000 is a completely different world than looking at COGS, knowing what has worked before, knowing what is going on in and outside the channel now. Trusting the fact that you were wise enough to choose the best and letting them execute, I think, is one of the strongest strategies for field to founder people who really want to build something great on the corporate level.
Yeah, I love that. It's I think when founders of new direct selling projects, when they neglect the idea of really trusting the field, someone with field experience, someone who's been there and now they're here and, you know, can totally speak to what a field member might be looking for, what a representative is looking to hear from corporate, from a new company. I think when that gets neglected, that can be a tough, like it's small, but it's important to have basically someone with history as a representative. Now, I wanted to know. Yeah, please go ahead. Say more.
Oh, I was going to say, it is incredibly important. That mindset, you can read about it, you can hear about it, but it cannot be replicated, in my opinion, unless you've lived it. Mm-hmm. By that same token, the experience on marketing, the experience in logistics, the experience in all the other factors that make a direct selling company run, those have to be executed with the talent and experience that exists too. It is a delicate balance, but we're seeing some companies really achieve a lot by allowing that balance to happen. You really are.
Yeah. Yeah. Right people in the right places. I wanted
100%. That's
to,
it.
yeah, I wanted to follow up with, do you see these missteps, that is just to say, as in wrong people in the wrong places, we should say. Um, no, not like, anyone specific, but like going over having not the right people with the right experience, like the right like fire for that particular role that they're stepping into a bit corporate. Do you see that as like isolated incidents, or maybe more of a larger trend affecting the direct selling industry as a whole?
You know, what I have seen in maybe 20, 25 companies that were found, that are founders, where the founders are still around, they're still working, they're still active in the company. One of the things that I have seen is usually the same ideals on how a company should be run are right at the heart of especially a field to founder member. And the reason I think those companies tend to be the most successful, as you and I just talked about, is they are passion driven. They're
Mhm.
absolutely passion driven. And so what I see is the ones that really succeed and move forward and accomplish the vision, or even greater than the vision
Sure.
that they originally had, the ones that I see do that are the ones that are willing to rely on the people with the corporate experience and balancing it with their passion for the field and their field viewpoint. A lot of times they feel they're the first ones to go through the situation they're going through. And of course you feel
Mm.
like that. If they're not connected, the summit that just happened in
Yeah.
February,
Hmm.
um, those connections and building those relationships, oftentimes when you're in a startup, the last thing you feel like you can do, or especially even if you're 5 years old and you're still streamlined, you're still a smaller company, got big dreams, you're starting to generate some profit, but you know, it's a tight ship. And the last thing you feel like you can do is send your top team members to some place like the Summit or DSU and let them network and learn. What we learn when we go to those places is, oh, wait, this person I just met went through that. Here's what they did that worked. Here's what they did that didn't work. And I'm not the first one to go through it. I'm not the
Hmm.
first one that had some top field leaders who were super passionate, and then all of a sudden their best friend from 12 years ago pulled them into another company. And now there's a storm on social media. I'm not the first one that discovered that shipping in Europe got paused because of a war or civil unrest or something like that. And
Hmm.
here's the solutions they tried. These worked, these didn't. When you don't isolate yourself and when you let your
Yes.
team do that, I hate to use the word networking, but when you let your team do that networking among their peers at places like the summit, then what you discover is, wow, what I'm facing, other people have come through it with flying colors, and they're usually willing to tell me how.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that is, of course, the direct selling legal and, well, what is it called now? Direct selling
Leadership,
channel
direct
summit.
selling, yes, direct
Direct
selling
selling
channels.
channel summit. I have to double check that. But yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. It's that perceived isolation. Like you could be
Yes.
in a room full of people that are in your situation or have gone through your situation before and have come out the other side and are dying to say, why don't more people know about this? I hope that nobody ever has to like experience that sort of corporate hardship or whatever it may be again. Then like you can be in a room full of those people and you'd never know if you don't, well, if you don't get into the room. It doesn't
That's
matter
true.
how old you are, how you know how new your company is. I guess that's the same thing. Just yeah, getting into the room, being there, and
And it
you know
will feel like a sacrifice because
totally.
for example, I I know when I go to something like the summit that for 3 days, there's not going to be someone doing my work.
Oh,
That work's
yeah.
just going to pause until I get back or until I get to the hotel room that night and do that work. And you know that it's
Yeah.
going to be it's going to create challenges to put yourself in the room. But if you do put yourself in the room, what you walk away with is brand new. And you want to put yourself in the room regularly because you weren't facing the challenges you're facing now that you faced 6 months ago. It's this exact same thing we tell our field. What you are experiencing now, when you go to these conferences, to these events, you're going to learn at a different level because you're looking for something different. And it's true for us too. It's 100% true for us too. I have to say, some of the brightest and most brilliant minds in business are in our channel. I know that for a fact because I happen to write for Social Selling News occasionally, for Direct Selling News, work on projects with them. And one of the reasons I keep doing it is because I get to talk to some of the brightest business minds out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a really bright bunch in this industry. I love what you said about how it is a sacrifice to put yourself in the room and often, because nobody knows that better than my team over at Momentum Factor. It is crazy around summits, but that is where we meet so many people. We learn so much about, I mean, we can research and read and look, Google all day, ask ChatGPT, whatever we do now, what the current state of the channel is, but you will not know until you're in that room. The energy.
And it's true. And on LinkedIn, before any of these conferences come up, you always get a flurry of people going, "Hey, are you going to be at the summit? I'd like to spend 15 minutes with you." And really what I'm thinking is, sir, if I don't finish this contract, I'm not going to have a job by the time summit is here. So I don't have time to answer your LinkedIn thing. But then you go to something like the summit and you connect with people like Geraldine Taylor and you have real conversations with her. She adds so much value to what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, the next time she messaged you on LinkedIn and you're like, "Oh, can't wait to talk to her." Yeah, hey, yeah, let's have coffee over Zoom or whatever it is you end up doing. But it absolutely is one of the privileges of working in this industry, is getting to talk to these minds that are just incredible.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jenna. Good luck in your endeavors, and we will see you back here on the pod, hopefully very soon.
Thank you for having me. It was always, always a pleasure. Bye, Anabelle.
And that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for listening to MomoTalks, and don't forget to keep up to date with Momentum Factor by logging on to momofactor.com and be on the lookout for our next MomoTalks episode wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, this is Anabelle signing off.